Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? Let me know about the sound, because we have a lot to talk about today. Already I see people popping up in the chat. Good, it's good, I'm good. I'm going to talk about, should we talk about abortions? No, we're not going to talk about it today. I'll actually have a stream about it. Normally it's not a conversation that I talk about, but there's changes being done in the United States. I don't think there's a nation in the world more obsessed with the subject than America. So weird. The rest of the world has moved on, but in the United States, you still have company going like, "Oh my God, you're pro-life, hate speech." Oh, okay. How you guys doing? Today I'm filled with positivity. I'm actually going to make a video about the games that I'm excited about coming next year. It's very weird. Making something that I actually enjoy. Usually lately I only talk about things that annoy me because it's hard not to. Very difficult. For example, you're going to see it this week is stupid. There was a German supermarket store in Romania which decided to put fences up in order to separate the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. I think we already talked about this, but let me just show you again. Some people who didn't know the news, they were saying that it's happening in Germany, but no, it's happening in Romania, right? So this is not because the government forces them to, like there's absolutely no mandate which makes them have to do this. They just did it because they wanted to. Like they looked at this and they thought, this is going to be a great idea. And I was saying, look, if you want to do this, why not just make instead of like looking as if it's a zoo or a prison, why not just make a fake wall all the way to the top, and then you can decorate it with EU flags with a rainbow color. You can, add stuff to it to make it look pretty, and it's still the same thing, but at least the optics will be different because the optics is what matters. And by the way, just so you can know how stupid they were, they didn't even ask people for papers. Like you could just, like, you were supposed to automatically walk on the proper line. So I think this is the worst PR stunt ever because there's so many people I looked at on Facebook who swear they're never going to shop there again. And people who are vaccinated as well, people who aren't, it doesn't matter. Like people were like, dude, I don't want to go to a store where it looks like a freaking prison. And I don't know how things are in Germany, but here the division between citizens isn't exploding into downright discrimination and hatred. It's like, okay, like this person chose to get it or didn't chose to get it, but he's still a citizen, right? He's still worthy of dignity and respect. At least that's how things are in Romania right now. I don't know if they're going to change, but I have seen videos from other countries that it seems it's like, oh my God, the citizen did a different decision than me. They're evil. They're evil. Okay, whatever. Yeah, it was probably an HR person that suggested, of course. Like everything bad comes from HR. I'm curious if there is a single positive thing that the HR has come up with, ever. Even no, hold on. There is actually one good thing that the HR can come up with. So when the company gets some vouchers or something like that, HR can go. It's like, oh, let's just allow them to have a retreat. Let's allow them to go to a bar or someplace. By the way, here's a tip if you're from a company, right? When a company is small, they usually will have like these events, maybe on Christmas, maybe, they might have an event where you go out to a bar, right? So you go out in public, and this is what the Blizzard employee also told me. So when the company is small, they go out to a pub, and, it's all the guys there, and they're having fun. When a company gets big, and you have like a large office building, and they say, hey, let's have like an office party, never drink there, ever. Whatever you do not drink, right? That is a Me Too lawsuit in the making. Just never touch alcohol when you're at these parties, all right? Like, if you decide to go to a business party, still think that it is business. Never think that you're there to have fun. Those people are not your friends. They're not your buddies. They're not your family. They're your coworkers. Your coworkers, not all, but probably the overwhelming amount of them, want the promotion. They want to manage to climb the corporate ladder. So treat them as such, right? Because everything you do, like you can, and by the way, like just because you're drunk doesn't mean that you're going to do something inappropriate. But what it does mean is maybe you're going to say an offensive joke. Maybe you're going to behave in a way that's unacceptable, right? So just don't. That's my advice to you if you're trying to climb that corporate ladder. Wait. Your employer has some HR training from drunkenness? How the Okay, give me the HR training for drunkenness. Now I'm really curious. Like, the whole thing with drunkenness is that you don't think clearly. Like, how is training for drunkenness going to work? That just blew my mind. That is just so, like, HR training for drunkenness. All right, explain. Yes, I mean, you can say some gamer words. That's the problem. If you're drunk, you can say an offensive joke, and then it can get you fired. It's not only that. It's not necessarily like you can say an offensive joke. Like, here in Romania, we don't have political correctness. I mean, not yet. And you can say something bad about the boss. You can, say something bad about the colleague. You can start gossiping, and it can hurt you down the line. So there's absolutely no reason why you should ever get drunk at an office party. Ever. Don't touch alcohol. Speaking of drunkenness, how much wine did you have? Okay, so I was actually starting to drink a little bit, and I realized that I'm having these really nasty stomach pains. Like, my stomach doesn't tolerate alcohol anymore, so I don't drink alcohol, which is good. But I guess the reason that I'm a little bit, how should I say, groggy right now is because I just woke up. So there's that. All right. Let me see what news I got. So there's something happening in the United States, right? I mean, there's always happening in the United States. You have that school shooting. But let's wait. Actually, yeah, let's wait for more people to join before I'll talk about it. I don't have it in Romania. Yeah, political correctness doesn't exist in Romania because political correctness comes from corporations. It doesn't come from the average Joe. Like, most people, from what I know, they don't care about political correctness. It's only when they get in an environment, a fascistic environment, where you have to do what the higher ups tell you to. So we're talking about a university where you're at the mercy of the professors, or a corporation. So if you don't have that, like, you're never going to get political correctness in a rural village. That's why they also dislike country folk. You're not going to get political correctness on the playground. Where you are going to get political correctness is where you have hierarchy. So you need someone in charge. You need a person that's... it's kind of like, when you grew up and you weren't supposed to say fuck, right? And your mother was always like, hey, watch your language, right? When you went out and you were having fun with the kids, everyone was saying fuck. I mean, it got to a point where I was using the word fuck as a punctuation sign because it felt liberating, right? That's why people cursed on the playground. It made you feel liberated. You weren't allowed to curse at home. So when you went out, you really felt that, oh my God, this is like an act of rebellion. I'm an adult now because I get to do what I want. But after a while, you notice that if you keep cursing all the time, it becomes childish, right? Because this is like the thing that's very interesting about psychology. You're not allowed to do it at home, right? Like, when you're a kid, you're not allowed to say it. You're not allowed to say the F word. Okay, so when you get, like, you want to be an adult so you can say it. like that, because adults get to say it. Like, you see your mom, you see your dad, they're cursing, so it's fine when they do it. But you want to be able to grow up, and you tie that. It's like being mature means you get to do whatever you want. So you finally, go outside and you start saying the word, and everyone does it. And at one point, you realize that it's mostly children that curse. I mean, adults curse as well, but they don't curse as much as the kids. So now you're like, okay, in order to mature, you have to stop saying it. It's like a weird paradox, but it is fascinating. Yeah, so the European Union tried to ban Christmas. Well, it's not that they're banning Christmas. It's they tried making it so people can't say the word Christmas in paperwork, right? So that, like, if you have a document or something, like an official EU document, you're not supposed to use the word Christmas. You're supposed to say holiday, in order to have inclusive language or whatever nonsense. So obviously people didn't like that very much. People got upset. And the reason people got upset and spoke against it, like, you don't get to see people having the same cojones in the United States. And this is because of communism, unironically. Here in Eastern Europe, communists enforced atheism. Right? You had to be an atheist in order to be in a communist society. They had a huge war against religion, and religious people were persecuted. So after having that in mind, after that mindset, people from Eastern Europe are incredibly skeptical of anyone that tries to force atheism. Even if, like, people aren't religious, like, the very notion that you're policing people and you're saying stop using the word Christmas, it's like, hold on, that's what the communists did. Fuck you, are you a communist? Right? So that's the vibe coming from Eastern Europe. And of course the church, who have been persecuted under communism, is very anti. Like here's the thing with the church. Like, if you're an atheist, they leave you alone. But if you're trying to impose atheism, like you're telling people, like, no, like, you don't believe in superstition, stop that shit, then the church is upset. If you're an institution, I wouldn't even call American communist. Like, people keep saying it's like, yeah, America is communist. The thing is, the Romanian communists would be considered far right by American standards. I mean, when it came to abortions, they were pro-life. Like, they really, really did their best in order to try to outlaw it. When it came to LGBT rights, they would lock people up. So we're not talking like, they were intolerant. No, like, if you were found out to be gay, you would go to prison in Romania. And this is, like, true to most socialist nations around the world. They were very strict on border controls. They would shoot people at the border if they tried to leave the country. What else did they do? I mean, like, there is no way you can look at any socialist policy in Romania that has to do with social life, which would not be considered far right by the current woke in the United States. Yeah, it is the Eastern European Church, not the Western Church, that's against Marxism. I mean, if you look at the Pope, I think you get one picture which speaks 1,000 words. It's very, very difficult to ignore this. So you had a socialist leader which gave this to the Pope. And as you can see, it's a heretical item, right? Now, you may say, well, of course, the Pope is being nice here, so he's just taking the gift. No, if you do this to an Orthodox patriarch, they would refuse it. They would say, no, I can't accept this, I'm sorry. And the communist knew what he was doing, right? Because he's like, oh, well, Jesus was a carpenter, so, this represents the worker and blah, blah, blah. No, fuck off, okay? This represents communism, and communism throughout history has oppressed and purged Christians, whatever they could find. It's not just Christians, it's religion in general. Like, communism is against religion. So millions of Christians were sent to the gulags, including nuns and other people. So there is absolutely no reason why you should accept this. And then if you look at the Pope, like he has only negative things to say about Christian leaders. So he doesn't like Orban, he doesn't like Trump, but he has nothing negative to say about China. He's got nothing negative to say about other socialist dictators. It's very interesting. Like, find me something negative that the Pope said about China, and I'll show you what he said about the United States. Right? Like, the Pope is against building a wall and stuff, but there is a wall around Vatican. So I guess the walls are fine as long as they've been built before the person has got into power. So if they're already built, then the walls are fine. If you're trying to build them, then it's not good. Right? Let's talk about the shooting in the United States, right? Because this is something interesting, and I want to know what you guys think. So, from what I understand, there was another one which happened, I believe it was last week, and now the parents are being arrested, right? So the parents are being arrested because they were careless with the gun. Now, the reason I find it interesting is that if you have a law, like you have in Romania, where you need to keep the gun in a safe, and the parents fail to do so, then yeah, I get it why they're being investigated. But let's look at another situation. Let's say the parents have a car, and they leave the keys to the car unattended, right? And the kid without a driving license takes the car keys, goes out, and let's say runs into someone. Would the parents be responsible in that situation? Right? Like what if the father has an axe that he uses to chop wood, and the kid steals the axe? Is it the same? I mean, I'm not saying it may not be a good idea to have a law which makes it so that parents who have a gun need to make sure that children don't have access to it. So hold it in a drawer, in a locked drawer, hold it in a safe or whatever. Like, fine, like that is one thing. But if there is no law that already says this, you can't punish someone for a law that doesn't exist. So that's my thing. No, it's a car. Well, what is the difference? It's the tool that the person used in order to commit the crime. What if a kid gets a crossbow? Is it the parent's fault? Yeah, like that's the question. I'm not against having a law to make it so that parents have to be sure that the kid doesn't take their gun. Like that is actually a good law, to be honest. And there's many ways you can do it. Like if you're a parent, to make sure that the kids don't have access. But other than that, if there is no law, then I don't see why the parents are being prosecuted. Sorry. If the parents weren't white, this would never happen. I don't think this has happened in the past, as far as I know. I mean, if it did, it wasn't in the media, that's for sure. I've never heard about the parents being prosecuted in the United States, out of all the school shootings. But, maybe it has happened, and it just wasn't in the media. I don't know what to say. Knives are banned in the UK. Yeah. So that they actually did that. It's not that knives are banned in the UK. I think like shanks are banned in the UK. UK is being treated like you're in a prison, and the police can check you and to see it's like, hey, do you have a shank on you? Let me check to see, like patting it out. Here's an example, right? So there was this potato peeler. They don't talk about it much ever since Corona, but it's so ridiculous when you look at it. British man arrested for wielding potato peeler in public. So when you see the article, it's wielding, right? And then you think, oh, well, of course, But then when you look at it, He was found walking the streets with a potato peeler, so he wasn't wielding it in public. He just had it on him. Okay. Every other nation in the world, you can even have a screwdriver on you. Like in Romania, I think you can even have a machete with you, right? Like it depends how you're walking with it, of course. Like if you're threatening people with it, then it's illegal. But if you have a machete and you just hold it next to you, right? Like you're walking and you're holding it downwards, and you're casually walking, like you're not spooking anyone with it. People will just assume it's like, okay, well, he just bought a machete and he's taking it home. Like it's not something that would scare people, and it's not something that's illegal. Now, of course, it depends on the context. Like if you're fighting someone and you have a machete in hand, then it's considered that you're having a melee weapon. Or if you threaten someone with it, or if you're holding it in a aggressive manner that's capable of scaring people, then yeah. But if you just have a machete, no, it's like no police officer is going to say anything. And even if a police officer says something, you can just say, yeah, I just bought it. I'm taking it home. Or yeah, I'm taking it from my house to my mother's house because she needs it. But that's actually like a good question, right? Like let's say things are banned in the UK. Like let's say knives are banned. Like how do you buy them? That is one of the questions that I'm curious. Like how do you buy a knife and take it home? Like if it's in the package, it's good. And secondly, what if like someone asks you, right? Like let's say my mom says, hey, like my potato peeler broke. Can you bring me yours? Or something like that. Like you're going to your mom to have dinner. And she's like, yeah, just bring a potato peeler because mine is rusty or whatever. Like, do you need documents in order to take it? Like, how does it work? Here, people would probably freak out when they see you holding a machete. Where is that, Jimmy? In what country? I mean, again, like it depends how you're holding it. But if you're like, like holding it downwards and you're casually walking and it's next to your leg, especially, well, I guess if it's in a package or not. But like, yeah, like what people would do here is they would have a bag and they would put the machete in the bag and then no one gets upset, Like obviously if you're, holding it over your head or whatever, like people would freak out. But no, I will tell you, Netherlands. I will tell you a way that a colleague of mine actually managed to freak people out. And he almost got in trouble with the law. So we were at the first year of university. And at med school, you have to buy a skeleton. And you have to buy a skeleton so you can learn anatomy, right? Now, the problem is that a lot of people prefer an actual skeleton. Because even if you have one that's made out of plastic or whatever, the problem is that you don't really get to see the the markings on the bone, and sometimes it's not as good. Let's put it like this. So people want like and especially university professors, like they expect you to get an actual skeleton. Now, don't think about the fact that you have the whole skeleton, right? Because you don't need it. Like if you have one humerus, you don't need the other one. If you have one femur, you don't need the other one. So you just need like one bone of each, right? Like you don't need all the ribs. You just need one rib. So the way you get a skeleton is you get it from another university student which finished first grade. So first year. Because like when you buy it, right, you have it and then you don't need it anymore. So you're donating it to someone else. And there was this guy who got a skeleton, he just bought it. And then he goes into public transport, takes the bus home. And while he's home, I'm pretty sure like if you were at med school, right, and you just got the skeleton, you're curious, like you want to see how it's like, right? And this guy like in the bus starts picking out the bones and he's looking at the human remains and like he pulls out the cranium and everyone in the bus is freaked out and because like you forget that you're a med school student, but other people aren't, right? So they don't know why do you have a cranium? They don't know, like, why are you having these things? So he looked like a serial killer. But that passed, like you explain it to people and you're like, well, the reason that I have it is because I'm in med school. But it was still funny. Imagine that though, like I don't even know, like, why would I be scared? Like, you see one guy with the bag and he's like pulling the Shakespeare item and to be or not to be. The funny fact is, like, where do these skeletons come from, right? Because you buy them from a student. Like that's what I was told. And I actually started wondering, it's like, okay, you buy it from a student, and probably the other student bought it from a student, and he bought it from a student, but at one point, someone had to get that skeleton. Where does it come from? And from what I could tell, like, this is just speculation, but I think someone at some point actually went to a graveyard and asked the gravekeeper. So the gravekeeper went and unburied someone's mama from the year 1900 or something like that, to make absolutely sure that that mama won't be missed, and then boiled the bones in order to make sure that all of the germs and all of the impurities are being boiled away, and gave it to the person who paid money for it, because there's no other explanation. Like, I don't know. Like, first of all, I don't think, like, the med student himself decided to open the crypt. But I do think that, yes, like, through the crosses in the dark, yeah, I'm unburying your mama, yeah. There's no other explanation for it, right? So they probably just went to the gravekeeper. I can't think of other possibilities. Oh, look, the succubus is here. Like, she probably knows all about skeletons. No, I think, like, they went to. I mean, in my town, you have graves that are very old. I mean, I think I saw one from 1900 or 1890. So like, these people are incredibly unlikely to have any living members, family members. So yeah, I mean, that's where the graveyard, the digger, probably operated. We have catacombs in my town as well, but yeah, the catacombs are weird. Like, they're so large, most people don't even know where they are. It's probably why my town will never have a metro. It's just like it's catacombs everywhere, and the metro might collapse. Anyway, right, let's talk about Elon Musk. Because this is what we're going. First of all, Raging Golden Eagle. Yeah, I need to talk about it. So the man, as you know, got banned, and I think he might get his channel back. That's my prediction, right? Because I don't think he got banned for any political reasons. He did get banned because of lewdness. Like, I seen some of the pictures that were on his channel, and I would say that it would warrant a video getting age restricted, like 18 plus, or it would warrant a community guideline strike, but it wouldn't warrant his channel being deleted. So I do think he might get it back. I spoke with a lot of YouTubers behind the scenes, and we're all trying to help him out. And it's probably going to happen next week, right? Because now it's the weekend, people aren't at work, so I have confidence that he's going to get his channel back. But, like, I may always be wrong. However, I hope I'm right in this case. And yeah, he's probably going to be a good boy. Think about it this way. It's a Gundam, right? Like, he had that little puppet. He had the puppet. What was the puppet's name? Billy. Yeah, he had the Billy puppet. And it was very funny. Like, he would do a lot of jokes with the puppet. But YouTube age restricted every video. So if that's age restriction, like if having a puppet is now a problem, yeah, showing actual lewd scenes, like for example, Raging Golden Eagle had this scene where a girl fell down and her legs were spread, and another girl was looking, between the other girls, and it's like, okay, I mean, that's really lewd. It's not descriptive. It's not anything like that, but I can see why a moderator at YouTube wouldn't like it. So it's possible that you have a moderator looking at it and he's like, yes, there's too much of that on this channel. I don't know. Still, I don't agree with him getting banned, and hopefully it's going to be sorted out. Gundam used to be funny, but it's not his fault that he isn't. Like, I still speak with the man. He's very funny in DMs. But the reason he is not funny is due to YouTube's TOS. I mean, Gundam would be 100 times more funny if Susan would leave him alone. Yeah, I know, Abdi Muhammad. I'm aware of the things that go on the platform. I'm getting lots of recommendations of the great Patreon banning. Your dramatic reading of the Matt Christensen Patreon transcript. Thoughts on the last 3 years? So, I mean, what can I say? 3 years ago, you weren't allowed to say certain words. I mean, that's how it started, right? It's like, well, we need to protect women on the internet, so don't say words that are harmful. And I'm like, okay, fine, no gamer words. I mean, I can live with that. It's just that I guess I can express the same ideas without using foul language. That's fine. And then it went, you're not allowed to be part of certain ideologies, right? Like that was the next purge. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not part of those ideologies. Don't really agree with this. I mean, surely before censorship, you can at least try talking with people. I mean, if someone is part of an ideology, it means that there's a reason why he got there. You can try to talk and convince or, talk him out of it. But yeah, so that's when ideologies got banned. And now it's like you're not allowed to have political concepts or political opinions. I mean, on Twitter, if you misgender someone, it's a bannable offense. And you're not allowed to say things. For example, with the Kyle Rittenhouse is a good point. It's like 1 year ago, if you were to say that it was self-defense, you could get banned from a platform. So it's getting to the point where just having a political opinion is now wrong. And even more than that, like you have people that get banned and they don't know why they get banned. It's like you've been banned for community guideline violations. It's like, what did I do? It's like, oh, you can file an appeal. Well, I would love to file an appeal, but what the fuck did I do? And they don't tell you, right? So when it comes to Patreon, I've heard how insidious they are. Like, for example, they will follow artists. So let's say you're an artist and you work on Patreon. And you will get a nanny in some cases. Like, not all artists get it, but it's usually like if you're making a lot of money, you'll get a nanny. And they will tell you what you're allowed to draw, where you're allowed to post it. It's almost like a boss. But when you think about it, it's like, hold on a little bit. You're not paying me. It's other people's money, you dipshit. Like on Patreon, it's like I'm getting paid by my fans for my work. And you're just the intermediary. With what right are you telling me this? So you have a lot of artists, and the reason they don't want to move to Subscribestar is because Subscribestar is still considered evil by the left. So if you're like a furry artist or you're an artist that leftists want, they're not going to give you money if you go on Subscribestar. So they stay on Patreon. Patreon would have been far more evil if they didn't have the competition. So because you have Subscribestar, Patreon is not able to go full fascist mode. But the ones that do stay on Patreon and are famous, so if you're making like more than 10 grand or something like that, You can get a nanny on your shoulder and they will tell you how you need to behave on other platforms. They will tell you what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to create. It's very difficult. And not to mention, like, some of the things that they're doing have absolutely no sense. Like, for example, they will ban hypno porn, right? So what is hypno porn? Hypno porn is like hypnotizing someone, and obviously, like, that doesn't exist in reality, right? Like, you can't hypnotize someone and then you have sex with them. It's just, it's impossible, right? There are certain fetishes that cannot be reproduced in the real world. So, for example, if you draw a comic where a succubus is hypnotizing a victim and then she has her way with the victim, right? That's hypno. And it's banned because it's considered to promote rape culture. And I'm thinking, like, how the fucking fuck? Like, how? Just why? Right? So these decisions come overnight. So you can be an artist that specializes in that domain. You can be an artist that tries to service that fetish. And all of a sudden you find out it's like, oh yes, you're banned. And I'm like, hold on a little bit, it's my life work. Like, if I knew that this is the rule when I started this 2 years ago, I wouldn't have chosen your website, right? So because they do this, a lot of people are not comfortable with Patreon, because even if you play by the rules, it's like, well, what if the rules change tomorrow and then I'm gone? I mean, look at the succubus, right? Like, it's like she feels persecuted. I wish I could hypnotize people to give me super chats. That would be great, but I lack the power to do so. Oh yeah, incest is another thing, right? So, like, imagine this. It's an actual fetish on many websites, but if you're a person that doesn't have any sisters, right, and you want to look at something like, Guy Bones' stepsister or whatever, like, you don't even have a sister, you don't even have a stepsister. How is that harmful? Like, how can you just, whatever. I mean, drawing the line when it comes to fetishes is just weird. In some cases, especially like if it's cartoon based, right? Like, if it's cartoon based, this is why it's a lot better if you just have a flat out ban and you don't deal with it, right? Because then you have, like, you're sitting on a table in a commission. It's like, okay, but is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Is this allowed? Just ban all of it and fuck it. What do you mean there's no PayPal links? Look here. This is here. Like, they just Gura made a joke about it. I didn't know Gura is actually a connoisseur. I didn't think Gura is a woman of culture. All right, let's talk about Elon Musk. So here's the interesting thing with Elon. From what I know, most rich people end up getting divorced. I mean, if you look at Hollywood, and this has always been the case, by the way. If you look at Hollywood, the divorce rates are skyrocketing compared to the average population. And I think there's several reasons for it. Like, number one, when you're poor, you actually aren't thinking about your relationship that much, right? Because you're poor, you're both struggling, and you're thinking, the last thing I need right now is a divorce. And you're like, we just need to provide for each other. It's two people. It's better than one person, right? But when you're filthy rich, you get bored easily, and you're thinking, okay, well, think about it this way, right? Like, you can get anything you want, like, right now. Like, money isn't an issue. It's almost like you have a cheat code in life, and you can go out wherever you want, eat whatever you want. You can, like, right now, if you want, you can just hop on a private jet, and go to the Bahamas, right? So life has no meaning in consuming. So you need to find something else. And what can give meaning? It's like, okay, a new relationship, a new start, meeting a new person, right? Doing an orgy, like something that you can't get just by paying money. So this is probably why a lot of celebrities divorce, because most relationships, they're the most fun at the beginning, but after a while, they get boring. So you need to find other things. Now, most people find other things in like trying to put their kids into college, trying to uh, pay the mortgage for a new car. But again, like if you're rich, you have all these things covered. So you need adventure. And that's why I think most rich people divorce. And on top of that, it's also the legislation. The legislation, if you're a woman, I mean, think about it this way. No, let's put it this way. Let's say that the legislation was the opposite, right? And if you're a man, you can marry a rich woman, give a divorce, and then take half her shit. Now, I'm not saying most people will think about doing this, but it's fucking tempting, isn't it? Like, it is so tempting. Imagine going into a business, and if you quit your job, you get a lot of money. Like, a lot of people will just quit their job to get that money, right? And I think that's another problem. So, these rich individuals, right, they risk losing a lot. The only solution, in my opinion, is to find a woman that has a similar income to you. So never, like if you're a wealthy person, don't marry down. Don't marry a woman that's unemployed, right? Just marry someone that also has the same financial ability as you do, so that it's not tempting for her to just go like, yeah, I'm going to divorce and take the money. So apparently, according to New Grimes, and New Grimes, from what I understand, is Elon's girlfriend, right? Well, his ex, and she's a Marxist. And I'm thinking, like, get the fuck out, Marxist. The more rich a person is, the more likely they're a Marxist, isn't it? Why isn't the guy that's homeless a Marxist? Isn't that interesting? Like, the guy that's begging in the gutter, he's not a Marxist. But Elon Musk's girlfriend is a Marxist. So, apparently he's a good gamer. And she's a singer, and apparently the greatest gamer is a reference to Elon Musk, because he plays video game. And he shared gaming-related memes on the internet. As if this is weird for a man to do. Most likely, game isn't a reference to a specific game, but a play on words. Player of games. It's a compelling picture of grand semi-utopian galactic feature. Involves SpaceX using electric cars in expensive tunnels. Or maybe the time he sold flamethrowers. I love this. It's like he has physically and verbally abused employees. Name me a boss that didn't. Name me one boss. A single boss from a company that never abused verbally an employee. Oh, did he date Amber? Wasn't a YouTuber, I think, like that guy with an umbrella? I don't follow him, but from what I understand, that guy with an umbrella got his video, like he deleted the video that he made with Amber, and it got community guidelines strike anyway. And I'm thinking, like, there is no way that Amber herself did that, right? Because the idea that a rich and influential person spends time looking at the YouTuber and flagging the video is bizarre. But I'm thinking, like, does Amber have like a community of people that go around flagging criticism of her? Because that's a lot more plausible. Like, I'm genuinely curious if Amber Heard has a community of people, or maybe like a moderator at YouTube or something like that. See, I love that the bank says Christianity is supreme. He who is without sin cast the first stone. So apparently the Chinese government is adding a Bible DLC like they tolerate Christianity as long as it follows communist guidelines. So they're literally like rewriting some parts of scripture. And when it comes to he who is without stone, cast as he who is without sin, cast the first stone. The Chinese are saying, all right, Jesus. So this is the story in the Chinese Bible, right? The Chinese Communist Bible. So Jesus says this: "He who is without sin cast the first stone." And then people go like, "Yeah, I guess he's got a point," and people leave. And then Jesus starts stoning the woman himself. And one of the apostles asks him, "It's like, why are you doing this?" And Jesus says, "Of course I am with sin, but if we were to have the laws being applied only by people without sin, then there would be no laws." So yeah, the Communist Party actually has that in the Bible. Like, it doesn't exist anywhere else, right? But it's how the communists are trying to subvert the Bible, and I found it very interesting. Like the DLC, the Jesus DLC, the Bible patch 1.06. Of course, it's not Jesus. It's kind of like Captain America getting a new writer, which happens to be a progressive man, a social justice activist. And all of a sudden, the Red Skull becomes Jordan Peterson and Captain America becomes a Nazi. It's not the same character. I agree. That wacky Jesus. It is a fair point. Yes, but it's not from the Bible. And not to mention, like, in those times, the people doing the stoning, right? Like, it was about taking justice in your own hands, right? So Jesus is not talking about the Romans or like the king's soldiers or anything like that. No. He's talking about like the people in a community deciding to take matter into their own hands. He's literally talking about the social justice activists mobbing on someone. That's what he's talking about. And he is saying that if you are without sin, cast the first stone, as in, how would you like it if the mob comes for you next? Because you did something, and the moment the mob finds out, like, they're going to come for you next. So if you keep encouraging this cycle of violence, and you're going to encourage this cycle of persecution, eventually the mob will be after you. So that is what Jesus is actually saying there. And he's not saying that people shouldn't have laws. He's not saying that a corrupt guard or a corrupt, I guess like the equivalent of a police officer today, shouldn't enforce legislation, or a corrupt judge shouldn't cast a sentence. No, he is saying about the mob, like people who aren't supposed to do justice, deciding to persecute others for things that they themselves can do. Rauma, thank you, V. Exactly what I wanted to say in chat. It's kind of funny because there's so many Christians that go like, "Wow, V, you're an atheist, and yet you say things that my priest fails to articulate." And it's like, yeah, because most Christians don't read Bible philosophy, right? And there's two ways of reading it. I guess like you can read the Bible just to be like gotcha and have a zinger and be like, see, clearly it's fake. There is no God. Or you can read the Bible understanding that it's actually a philosophy that existed for more than 2,000 years, and people kept adding to it, and it's trying to understand the human experience, and it's actually filled with a lot of wisdom. And this is why I made the video. I'm fact-checking you. She literally said she isn't a commie. Okay, my bad. I saw her reading a book about Marxism, and whatever, fine, she's not a commie. I guess I have a super chat, so let me just read it. I believe the celebrities have alternative accounts. A world famous basketball player, Kevin Durant, was caught replying to himself in third person. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Also, imagine if she was reading Mein Kampf, because people will say, well, yeah, but just because she's reading Karl Marx doesn't make her a Marxist. Okay, imagine if she was reading Mein Kampf. Now, What was I talking before? Oh, yeah, the Bible. So here's an interesting thing, because I keep analyzing the difference between psychologists and priests, right? Because in a way, they both serve the same function. Like, people go with the problem, they go with their worries, so they go to a priest. This is what my grandmother used to do, right? Like, she would be depressed, maybe the marriage isn't going properly, maybe she's worried about something my father did, or whatever. And she would go to a priest, and it wasn't just to confess her sins, right? No, it was like she would actually have a conversation with the priest. It's like, oh, look, the marriage isn't going good because this and this and that. And the priest would be like, have you tried doing this and this and that? Which is literally the same with what you do with the psychologist. Like, you go to a psychologist and you say, well, my marriage isn't working because this and this and that. And the psychologist goes like, okay, have you tried doing this and this and that? So it's not really that different. I guess the only interesting, because I'm looking at the major differences. And one of them is that a psychologist is going to encourage the things you're doing. Right? So this is like what I spoke with many people who went to see a psychologist. They're not going to say that what you're doing is bad, unless you're committing a crime or whatever. But they're going to like try to validate almost everything you say, right? A priest is different. A priest doesn't really give a fuck about not judging you, right? Because in religion, right, like you have a set of moral values, which is different to different religions, of course, right? Like, if you don't like your moral values in your religion, like, for example, if you're Muslim and you don't like the fact that you can't drink alcohol or whatever, you can make the argument, it's like, okay, but like drinking alcohol is not objectively bad because there's other religions that allow it. So I get the argument, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the fact that a religion has a set of rules, all right? And the priest will judge you if you break those rules. Like, he will say, yes, you did bad, don't do it again. A psychologist doesn't really do that. Like, a psychologist isn't going to outright tell you, it's like, yeah, you did a bad thing, you need to stop doing that. Because a psychologist is someone that you pay, so he doesn't want to really upset you. But a priest, on the other hand, is not being paid directly by you, so he's actually going to give you some advice that might be good. It's like, yeah, you did very bad here, you need to change what you're doing. It's not about Jesus. I'm talking about like going to a priest with problems. Thank you, Banks Naughty Bits. I appreciate it. I got 50 cents. Got 50 cents in my pocket. They won't tell you the truth. They are a lazy child and have no idea what responsibility is. I mean, I guess, whatever. I like that's my point, like, I'm not judging religion through the lens that God is real. I'm just judging the philosophy of religion, right? Because religion says do not judge, but priests will judge you, right? So it is a contradiction, I guess. But the question is, like, will a priest help you? Like, if you're having depression and you need it, and the answer is he might. That's the conclusion that I got. Like, it's possible that he might. I don't believe in the idea not to judge people. I think it's human nature to judge people. I don't think you can go through life without judging people. I mean, even if you sit with 10 other people at a table, you're going to judge people. There's no way that you can go through life without judging people. I guess, like, what religion tries to say, like, the way, if you look at the spirit of what it means rather than the word, it means try not to act on those judgments, right? Like, so for example, let's say you have a colleague that is very annoying, right? So he's an annoying person. And you confront him about it, right? And maybe you even burn a bridge. Later in life, maybe that colleague gets a promotion and now he's your boss. And because you burnt the bridge with him, now you're in trouble. So I guess a better advice would be try as often as possible not to burn bridges with people. Like, in your life, whenever you can, try to maintain a cordial relationship. That doesn't mean that you need to like the person. It doesn't mean that you have to do what the person tells you. But what it means is like try not to be a dick to people because you may need their help in the future. Like it's look at it through a selfish lens, if you will. Here's an example. I know a person who worked at the University of Medicine, and they weren't higher up, right? But on top of him, there were two women, and these women were university professors. So one day, one of the women comes to him, like one of the women starts arguing with the other woman, right? Like they're having a spat. So she comes to him and starts gossiping about the other professor. And the guy goes like, oh, yeah, absolutely, she's the worst. And she starts saying bad things about her. Turns out a month after, those two women make up. Like, they're not arguing anymore. And one of them tells the other, it's like, look what this guy said about you. Now, of course, he didn't get fired. But it managed to create a very strenuous relationship. So my advice is don't gossip about people whenever you can. Don't burn bridges whenever you can. Professionally, I mean. And even outside the profession, because you never know when you need those people. You never know when you might come in life and either you have a problem and that person would help you, but because you burned the bridge, you can't ask for help. Or it can end up that, for example, you need a promotion and that person just happened to become your boss. Or, they can be spiteful and they can find ways to hurt you. So just try not to, try your best in order to, there's this Romanian expression, leave room for hello, right? A great question to ask a Christian is what happens to the Native Americans who had no access to the Bible? Does God just damn them all? Yeah, I think the answer for the Catholic would be that they would be in purgatory. But I mean, if you look at Christianity, there's a lot of things that you can consider evil. For example, what happens with aborted fetuses, right? Because they have a life. And I think the answer is because they don't get baptism. And even the babies that die before baptism, same thing. With Catholics, they go to purgatory, and I think with Orthodox, they go to hell. So it's not all puppies and kittens. Godless has cursed Western society to meaningless and depression. So, I think there are people who can be atheists and be happy. Right? Like, for example, myself. You can find meaning in other things. But I don't think all people can be atheists and be happy, if that makes a sense. And I think it's the same with religion. Like some people can find religion to be uplifting, other people will find religion to be incredibly oppressive. So I don't know, but I do think like a set of rules needs to exist in society, because otherwise you get other rules shoved onto you. So, for example, wokeness. Wokeness is the absence of religion. Or if you look at France, you can have radical Islam coming up. And what do you do then? Like, what is your argument? So you need to. I think Napoleon, right? Like this is something very interesting. So, the first time where you have like state atheism, I think in European history, is with the French Revolution. So the French Revolution rebelled against the Catholic Church, and they were very successful in doing so. Now, after the French Revolution, you have Napoleon, and he realized that a country without morals is not a good country, right? So he talks with the Pope and he reestablishes religion. But the thing is, like, when you say morals, right? Like, an atheist will say, okay, so if God says don't kill, sorry, if you don't have God telling you not to kill someone, like, don't you know that you shouldn't? And the thing is, like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, there are a couple of extreme examples, like don't steal, don't murder, that type of thing. But then there are others, like, for example, give to charity, right? Some people will give to charity, but when it comes to being greedy, right? Like, there's no rule forbidding you from being greedy. Why shouldn't you be greedy, right? So there are a couple of morality, like, for example, being married. Why should you be married? Why should you have kids, right? Like, without religion, there is no answer to this question. And then you have the collapse of the welfare state, and then you have all the problems that come from it, because the economy is going down and the country becomes shittier. Right? So some people do need religion in order to, like, they don't really understand why things are the way they are. So religion tells them, it's like, no, you need to do this. Why? Because God says so. Right? So end of discussion. Like, why do I need to tolerate my wife? Why can't I get a divorce and leave my kids with a single mother? It's like, because God says it's bad. Period. Right? Like, why can't I be a womanizer? Why can't I just have sex with as many women as possible? It's like, because God, that's why. Shut the fuck up. Right? So some people require that. But, you know, the communists also found the same thing. Like, the communists, they also had state religion that was enforced. And then they realized that, oh, well, people now don't have any type of morality. So they created the code of the good builder, the good communist builder. Let me see if I can find it. It depends on your denomination, Yukiko. Like, some denominations believe what you say, others don't. Don't think you have all the answer. Yeah, so look at this. I mean, this is a complete ripoff on the Bible. So this is the 12 Rules of the Builder of Communism. This was a book that was published in 1961, part of the New Party program, after they realized, oh, well, we got rid of the 10 Commandments, so now they have this. Number 1, loyalty to communism and love to the socialist motherland and other socialist countries. This is like, I am the Lord thy God. Consciousness for the good of society. One who doesn't work doesn't get to eat, right? Because if you're in a welfare state, why would it be immoral to just get welfare? I mean, there is no God, there's no morality, there's not, like, why can't you just get welfare? You know, the path of least resistance. Well, now it's like the rules for builder of communism. Now you have morality dictated by the state. It's like, no, you need to work. If you don't work, you don't eat. This is far right, isn't it? Huh? Care for the collective property as well as the multiplying of this property. Right? So without God, it's like, why should I care about littering in a park? It's not your park, right? It's everyone's park. This is actually something that communists had to deal with. The fact that when everyone... like when no one will own something... Or sorry, when everyone owns something, then no one owns it. So a lot of people will just, like under communism, you had people just literally stealing from a store, right? So a store employer would steal from a store. Now the boss would see him and the boss would shrug because it's not his store, like he doesn't give a fuck, right? So if it's not your store, why do you care about the store having a profit? And now it's like, well, you need to care about the multiplying of this property. Right? So it's very weird. I mean, you're not in a capitalist society. Like, the reason a store owner wants his store to grow is because it directly affects him. But in a communist system, it's not his store. Why does he care if it grows or not? So you have the state, like, having to do the 12 rules of the builder of communism. It's like, oh, well, now if you don't care, you're not a good communist. And we don't associate with people who aren't good communists. High consciousness of social responsibilities and intolerance to the violation of the social interests. Collectivism and camaraderie. All for one and one for all. Oh my God, like, so cringe. Do you honestly think Stalin would give away his wealth for you? humane relationships between human beings. One human being is a friend, a comrade, and a brother to another human being. Yeah, unless he's a capitalist. Honestly, honesty, ethical cleanliness, simplicity, right? So they came up with these bullshit, right? Like they created these bullshits in order to justify teaching morality to people. It's like if someone would go like, well, why should I do this? It's like, well, because it's in the code. That's why. Like it says it's in the code, so therefore. I did set up a Discord, and then the Discord mod said there is hate speech on your server. And I was like, okay, so you're not telling me what was said. You're not telling me what it is. I need to figure it out. Fuck you. And I just closed my Discord. If everything belongs to the people, can't I destroy my property? I'm part of the people. No, because the other people wouldn't allow you to destroy your property. It's to the people. Yes, you're part of the people, but you're just one of the people. And the other people wouldn't allow you to do it. So, although, like, that's a good thing. I remember a good observation. The communists would say that they're doing things for the people. And if you disagreed with them, then you were an enemy of the people. So one day you're the people, the next day you're the enemy of the people. I'm not setting up shit. I'm not going to have a Discord just to ban people. Absolutely not. Rule 13, at least one glass of soy. Man, the communists were buff at the time. Anyway, right. Thank you for watching. I need to do my videos now because it's 7. Hopefully I didn't bore you, but there's going to be This Week in Stupid later on tonight, and I guarantee to you that's going to be interesting. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chat, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.